Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another video. So I wanted to actually do a Q&A video here. So it's the first video of the month, and yeah, I wanted to answer some of your questions regarding The Walking Dead as well as Stranger Things as well. So I do want to say that this will contain spoilers for I guess the final season of Stranger Things. Obviously just the 4 episodes, but yeah, I just wanted to warn you for that. So I will also be posting a lot of Stranger Things content for the next month because honestly, like, I've been a fan of the show in the past and I've covered it here and there, but like, I wasn't like the most excited, for the show overall because there was a couple of seasons that I just wasn't a fan of, but I've really liked season 5 so far. I think season 5 has been probably one of the best seasons, and I mean, the ending of episode 4 was just incredible. So I do want to talk about that and get into some theories as to, what could happen in the next couple of episodes here, because really this is going to be it for Stranger Things, right? I mean, obviously I think there's talks of a spinoff, or maybe they confirmed a spinoff, but it does seem like, obviously this is like the final season and everything. So however this is going to end in the next 4 episodes here, like, this is the time to talk about it because it's going to be over in like a month from now or less than that, right? So yeah, anyways, expect a lot more content on that, as well as Followed as well, season 2. That's going to be out in like, 8 days, I think? I could be wrong on the date. I think it was December 14th, but yeah, I'm excited. I really cannot wait. There's a lot of shows coming out right now, and The Walking Dead has been a little bit quiet, but there is still some stuff to talk about here. So yeah, before we go any further, make sure to be a subscriber if you want to get all of my content like this, but let's get into the very first question. Q&A, how do you see season 4 of The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon ending? Now, I've answered this question quite a bit, but I will say, I think that the one thing that we can definitely see happening for sure is the character arriving back in America. Like Daryl Dixon, I think he'll be in America. I don't think it's going to be one of those things where, he just stays there and Carol goes back. Like, I just don't see that happening at all. I think that Daryl will for sure end up being in America. With Carol, I still think that it really is one of those things where maybe the character just stays in Spain, because like, I'm trying to think of, could Melissa McBride be done playing Carol? And I think the possibility is there. Like, I could see her being like, maybe wanting to take a break for a bit or something, right? And maybe she stays behind because of the whole Antonio storyline that's happening right now. So that is something that I still think is definitely a possibility. I don't think Rick is going to be there in the final episode. I know that obviously everyone's going to be talking about that and we'll see, but I personally don't believe that he'll actually be in that episode, just because I think they're going to save that reunion for an actual show. Like, Stranger Things is ending right now, but there's likely going to be spinoffs and everything. And so it makes it really interesting when you're looking at, what the future is going to be of that world. And like, that's just what happens with really popular shows like this. Like, they just want to keep it going. There's really only one franchise where they kind of never did, and that's Breaking Bad. And, I would say Breaking Bad could still do more stories. Honestly, it definitely still could. But like Stranger Things, they're probably going to keep going with that for a while. Game of Thrones is doing it right now. Like, they're going to keep doing it for a while. And I think The Walking Dead, that's just going to be something that is going to continue happening, I think, as more and more spinoffs. And I just think that Daryl being in Spain or traveling somewhere else and doing another spinoff with him where he's traveling to another place, like, it's basically the same thing they've been doing. And so that's why I think that Daryl's going to be going back to America, because I do think that that is weirdly, like, we've had that story for a long time, but I think that would be the most refreshing thing for The Walking Dead, is having the character back and like, more involved with like the storyline of like what's happening in America and like with the Commonwealth and everything, right? So I guess to answer your question, that's kind of how I see it ending, is basically the characters being back in America. And I mean, we'll see with Carol, I could see them doing something different where it's like, instead of Daryl and Carol just showing up and being back in America, maybe Carol stays back and then it's more sad, right? And like bittersweet, and Daryl and Carol are saying goodbye. And it's a crazy situation where, if you look at the very beginning of the series, Daryl was sort of taken there, he didn't want to go there, but Carol went there to go and find him. But then, she stays and then Daryl goes back. You know what I mean? Just to kind of like switch it around like that. I think that that would work, I think, for the series. And I could see them writing something like that. And it would kind of work as an ending, I think. It'd be sad to have Carol not show back up in any of the other spinoffs and like have everyone reunite. But I think it's also fine as of right now. I think we mostly want to see Rick and Daryl reunite and some of the other characters and everything. I think that Carol hasn't really had much of a story, I would say, even in season 3. Like, it's kind of crazy, but like, I do think that the writers are kind of just like forgetting about her a little bit, like just not writing a lot of interesting story for her. But then again, like they did kind of give her a big story in season 2 and it just didn't go well. But I also think, honestly, it was just the timing of like literally everyone was so interested in the France storyline that they gave her a story where she's trying to get to France. And like, it was interesting to see it, but it took away so much from that it just kind of, again, it's because there was only 6 episodes. Like, I just always go back to that. Like, the amount of episodes hurts these character stories a lot, because then you just kind of ignore a lot of characters' stories and like where they can go here and there and everything, right? So that's what I would say with that. Q&A, how do you think we get the reunion? If we do, maybe The Walking Dead season 12 or an episode of Dead City, or maybe The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon ending, or an extra season of The Ones Who Live. Well, out of those 4 there, I would say the most likely is probably a Walking Dead season 12. I know it's crazy to say instead of another season of The Ones Who Live, but I just think that to renew The Ones Who Live for season 2, like, I don't want to say it's old news. It's not old news, but it's like announcing a new show. There's a lot of hype to it, right? I think if there's something that is coming out like a brand new show, it's really exciting because you want to see what the opening credits are going to be like, and like the music, and like what the title is going to be. What is this show going to be like? And it's one of those things where when people watch a show that is just starting for the first time, it's really exciting, right? Whereas I think if they announced a season 2, the ratings would be lower than a season 1, just because, like, even though people are excited, season 1 kind of had an ending, I would say, for Rick and Michonne and the family part there anyways, right? Like, not necessarily an ending, but it was more like it wrapped up storylines there, right? It didn't really tease anything else for the future for a season 2, but obviously the door was still open for characters to reunite and everything else to happen. So, but I think that doing a new series is really exciting. There's a lot of possibilities. You can really define what the story and the narrative of, I guess, really honestly, the tone of the show, I would say, for the most part. Like, you can be like, oh, this is going to be a lot more like action-like. It's going to be more like The Walking Dead season 4 and 5. Like, you can definitely do a lot of that there, I would say, with a new show, right? So I think that that's kind of where they're probably going to go for the most part. But out of those 4 options, I think probably a Walking Dead season 12. Dead City, I think, would be too random. I just don't see it. I don't see Andrew Lincoln just wanting to join that show, or like, you know what I mean? Like, they're going to want to make a bigger deal out of that if the characters are reuniting instead of just joining like season 3 or 4 of Dead City. Well, it probably would be a season 4, right? Even the ending of Daryl Dixon, like, it's too rushed. It's too fast. So I don't see it happening like that. And an extra season of The Ones Who Live, I kind of went over that. So if I had to say, I would say a Walking Dead season 12, or most likely a brand new show. Q&A, do you think Will has to die since he's connected to the hive mind and that's where he harnesses his powers? Now, I was thinking about this and like how they can sort of, I guess, tell this story. And I feel like Will, like, does he have powers just literally from himself? Like, was it from Vecna? Like, I do think obviously it probably was, but I'm just wondering if like it was something that he's always had, but he unlocked it. Or was it just literally what we saw in the very beginning of season 5, which was, it kind of seemed like, Vecna maybe gave him his powers or something. It honestly really reminds me of Voldemort in Harry Potter. Like, there's just that connection there. So I do think that Vecna and Will are very much connected. And in that way, I think that Will, honestly, I do feel like he's probably going to have to die. I think that just based off of where everything is at, I feel like 11 as well is going to have to die. I really do think it's going to be one of those, like, really sad endings where, I mean, maybe 11, will be saved and like maybe she'll lose her powers or something. But I just think that Will is going to be one of those characters that just has to die. Like, I'm trying to think of how it could play out if he survives. And like, that would be really cool, but he also just like got these powers, and I just think that it would be kind of underwhelming almost if he did survive and say that they defeated Vecna, and then he just lives happily ever after, and like that's kind of it. I feel like he could honestly be such a really incredible character, like a legendary character if he dies and like he sacrifices himself because of a connection to Vecna, right? And like the Mind Flayer and everything. So I think that honestly, what you're saying there makes the most sense. I know that it is kind of the most predictable, but I just think that it works so well for the story. I think everything else can be really sad. There's a lot of theories on like a lot of other characters dying, like Steve, I've been seeing a lot. I'm more worried about like a character like Mike. I'm trying to think of like, how does it work for the characters and like where they're going to go in the future, right? And I don't know if there's going to be a Nancy spinoff. I've heard, that they've been talking about it, or maybe they did confirm that already. I'm not sure, but I'm wondering, like, if Mike is gone, like maybe that's sort of a connection with Will and with Elle, right? And so there's that. They're both sad or whatever, but, they both remember Mike. And then Nancy, heartbroken because she lost her little brother, goes out and tries to like solve these other type of, situations that are happening that are similar to like the Upside Down and everything. Or is it going to be something just as simple as like Will is just that powerful? Because I've always wanted to see that happen. And I will say that was like one of my concerns with Stranger Things going back to season 2 or 3. Like, Will just seemed like really, really important to the story. And as the seasons went along, he was just kind of forgotten about. And I think it's kind of interesting that now all of a sudden he has become the character that like everyone, well, at least for me anyways, I've always wanted him to be. I've always wanted him to have powers like this or just be way more important to the story. And it's so cool to see. Like, it's so incredible. I was freaking out when I saw the final scene. I could not believe it. And I'm excited to see where they're going to go next. Like, what is the next scene going to be, and like everyone's reactions to what Will did, and what is Will going to be like now, right? Is he going to be the same person, or is he going to be a lot more confident? Like, what's going to happen with him now? Q&A, who has been your least favorite character so far this season? And I'm assuming you mean with Stranger Things. I think my least favorite character, I mean, honestly, all the characters are really great. Like, I'm thinking of all of the main characters. Well, I will say Linda Hamilton, she hasn't really been that exciting. Like, I was kind of expecting a lot more from her this season. But again, it's the first 4 episodes of season 5. So I imagine that, just based off of where her story kind of ends in this episode with, there'll be a lot more there, I think, in the next 4 episodes. Or at least I'm hoping so. I think the military will play a big role in everything here. The showrunners were talking about there being like a big like revelation with like the origins of the Upside Down and a lot of revelations of like everything in these next couple of episodes. I mean, this is the time to do it, right? Like, the show's ending. So yeah, I'm excited for all of this, honestly. Like, I honestly really can't even like pick like a least favorite character. I'm trying to think of like characters that have had like really like not great moments. Like, if anything, maybe Dustin, but like, again, no, not really. I've really liked his story this season where he's kind of acting like Eddie a lot, right? Like, there's really not a single character that's just like, I don't really care. Like, every character has had a really great story. Like, even Max had a really incredible story. I was so surprised to see her there, but I'm leaving it here though. Definitely post your thoughts down below, and also just post your thoughts, I guess, on me covering Stranger Things, and if you think I should do it or not. Like, I have been watching it a lot. I do know a lot of the story now. Like, I watched season 5 and I was like, oh, this is so amazing. Like, I really love this franchise. And so I went back and watched season 4, and then I've just been watching a lot of stuff with Stranger Things. And so I know quite a bit now. So I'm like, I'm ready to talk about it, and I will. I do actually want to talk about, just certain characters coming back, how things could end, and a lot of stuff with this season. Like, I have so many ideas, just my mind's going everywhere with all this stuff. So anyways, I'm gonna leave it here though. Definitely post all your thoughts down below. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.